Hey, what's up guys? Hello, Football Talk here. We're continuing our coverage of the 2020 NFL Draft. Last week we already put out the running back rankings, and this week we're going to move to the interior defensive line. That means basically everything from a true zero tech, nose tackle, all the way out to a 5-tech defensive end you can find in a 3-4 front, which is basically lined up head up on the offensive tackle. This class to me is filled with those upfield 3-techs you can find in a 4-3 front, but I think there's also other intriguing options in case you run a different scheme. To me, there are two top 15 prospects in this group and 6 names altogether that will ultimately end up in my top 50 when everything is said and done. After that, I think there's a lot of disagreements, and you can find all kinds of different rankings depending on the site or analyst you look at. And as you can already tell, my number one is Auburn's Derrick Brown, former top 10 national recruit, was once considered a first rounder already a year ago, but decided to return for his senior year and had a dominant season. 54 tackles, 11.5 of them for loss, 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumbles recovered, 4 passes knocked down, which earned him SEC Defensive Player of the Year and First Team All-American honors. At 6'5", 325 pounds, Derrick Brown is a monster in the middle of the defense, but also has some nimble movements. He shows good burst and pad level off the line, and has the strength to bench press offensive linemen back and throw them out of the way once the ball carrier approaches. He has the power to stand his ground versus double teams, but also displays tremendous effort when he gets shots from the side or has to chase guys down. A play that sticks out to me here is when he chased down Marquise Brown, now with the Ravens, formerly of Oklahoma, back in 2017, on some kind of bubble screen. It was basically head up with him at some point and closed the space down towards the sideline. Brown is also a very dependable tackler with 0 missed tackles last season. In the pass game, he shows some shock in his hands and can destroy the integrity of the pocket. He brings a lot of flexibility to the table for a big man, being able to run at angles and corner around blockers. He can either rip through the arms of guards and ride through, or yank them to the side in case the blockers are lunging towards him. Brown also flashed a nice spin move and was used as a secondary looper on some TT twists. Altogether, he had 30 extra pressures to go with his 4 sacks last season, also double-digit hits on the quarterback. One play that sticks out to me about his power is when he lifted an also powerful LSU guard in Damian Lewis off his feet, who basically was never the same anymore in that game. And from that point on, he was double teamed on every single snap, which was a common theme for him last year, as he was double and triple teamed in pretty much all of the Tigers' biggest games. The negatives here: he had a really underwhelming combine, 5.16 in the 40, the slowest 3-cone drill among all defensive linemen, and some modest leaping numbers, which has created some questions about his athleticism. I think he needs to do a better job fighting over the top of reach blocks, as you can see him kind of just trying to go through somebody and just trying to be big, but not actually landing on the right side of that. And as a pass rusher, I think he needs to add a little bit of a change up and be a better finisher altogether. He was a great pocket pusher for Auburn, but I think he has to work on that if he wants to be a dominant player at the next level as well. To me, however, he's a very complete all-around prospect. I think he can fit basically any front, either if you need him to shoot up a gap or maybe even double team. He was a tank in the run game and has some room for improvement as a pass rusher. He's probably going to be valued differently by different teams, but I think he's a top 5 overall prospect for me. Next up, I have Javon Kinlaw from South Carolina, who once joined a junior college, by his words, to basically just have some food and a place to sleep in. He's become a great player since then, earned a full scholarship from the Gamecocks a couple of years in, and before he even made an appearance for them, he shed 40 pounds. He's been a disruptive player in the SEC these last 2 years as a full-time starter, collecting 15 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, a couple of forced fumbles and fumbles recovered each, and 7 passes not batted down, which led to a first-team All-American selection in 2019. At 6'5", 325 pounds, he's pretty much the exact same measurements as I just had with Derrick Brown, but he's an incredibly rocked-up body for that size. He was primarily a free tech for South Carolina, where he routinely was the first one off the snap and created disruption in the run game. He drives Blacklock backwards and pulls ball carriers down, trying to cut underneath that block. Plays that sticks out was against Georgia, when he basically drove the center backwards 5 yards and forced the running back to redirect, and then one of his teammates made the tackle for loss. Kinlaw basically usually plays with good extension and works across the blocker's face, plus he has a long reach to set some tackles that most defensive linemen wouldn't be able to. In the pass game, Kinlaw put some guys straight on the butts as bull rusher, flashes quick rip and swim moves, and takes blockers off balance on several occasions. He displays very mobile hips, which you can see when he's coming off twists and other stuff like that, and he finds a way to get back into his lane. Adding to his 6 sacks last season came 40 extra pressures, which is highly impressive considering protections were heavily slid towards him, and you saw him kind of get that first win quickly with a swim move or something on the guard, and all of a sudden the center was waiting there for him already. To go with his obvious physical talents, he displays tremendous hustle. A play also that sticks out to me was last season in the Georgia game, which basically didn't really matter anymore. There was a ball which got a late whistle, and he picked that loose ball up. But what stood out to me is the way he was moving with it all of a sudden. It reminded me a little bit of Aaron Donald, if someone can remember, a couple of years back, when he picked up a loose ball, and he looked like a running back going with it. That's the kind of feel I got with Kinlaw as well. And then after the season ended, he pretty much wrecked everybody at the Senior Bowl and for his first 2 days there before he had to sit out the rest of the week. The negatives here, he has to do a better job of anchoring down against double teams. His pad level gets too high at times, and his head drops against the run, which allows ball carriers to run right past him a couple of times a game. To me, as a pass rusher, he has to rush with a little more of a plan and add some moves to his arsenal. All those power moves like bull rush, push-pull, stuff like that, it was enough in college, but I think he has to get a little more diverse as he makes the transition to the next level. To me, Kinlaw is just a freak. I think he has to learn some nuances in the run game, but he's explosive and disruptive in the backfield, and if he adds a little more variety to his pass rush, he can be a dominant rusher that way as well. He gives me a little bit of those Chris Jones vibes. At number 3, I have Ross Blacklock from TCU, former 4-star recruit out of Texas, who quickly made an impact for the Horned Frogs, became a freshman All-American and co-defensive freshman of the year in the Pac-12. He missed all of 2018 with a torn Achilles, but then last year came back 25 pounds lighter and was a dominant player in the Big 12. With 40 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, which all earned him first team All-Conference. At 6'4", 305 pounds, Blacklock split time between the 1 and 3 tech and was heavily utilized the 4-point stance as well. He has excellent upfield burst and influences play that way. He has tremendous core strength to anchor even in bad positions, and he split quite a few double teams that way as well. Added to that, he has outstanding lateral agility and lateral quickness to work around blockers and down the line. He was utilized on a lot of stunts and twists, even on base downs, and had to adjust on the fly according to the blocking scheme. When Blacklock is soloed up in the pass game, he can take offensive linemen for a ride with his bull rush or long arm, and he was asked to cross multiple gaps on those different types of twists, where he showed great burst to get there. When he was schemed up free himself, he showed impressive speed to not be picked up by anybody on the way even, or just give a little swipe as an offensive lineman tried to catch up to him. He displays great flexibility and is very slippery with sudden dips off the shoulder that way as well. While he only had 3.5 sacks last season, he also added 27 extra pressures, and he had a bit of a problem as well with the TCU scheme. A lot of times he was lined up, let's say, over centers, and both B gaps were uncovered, so the O-line could slide his way and make it tough for him to gain those one-on-ones. The minuses here for me, Blacklock is a little late to get in the stance at times, which impacts what he can actually do during the play. He doesn't always stay true to his gap discipline either, and overflows with some plays. He's had very little production in the pass game, where he needs to do a better job in attacking one half of the blocker and show a little bit of a better plan. Adjustment he has to make as well is coming from that slant-heavy scheme in the Big 12 where everything is wide open to be in the true disruptor up one gap. To me, Blacklock is a very highly flexible free tech who can hold his ground but also flow with plays. His best days as a pass rusher are still ahead of him without a refined set of moves, but to me he's a very intriguing option at the end of the first round that way. 4-5 Neville Gallimore from Oklahoma. Once the top overall recruit from Canada, after a redshirt year, he already showed promise in his first year off the bench, but his sophomore year unfortunately was marked by injury, and in 2018 he came back as an honorable mention Big 12 selection and improved that to second team All-Conference and third team All-American last season when he recorded 7.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks and a couple of forced fumbles. At 6'2", just under 300 pounds, Gallimore was forced to play more of a nose or shade nose role, which he really isn't made for, really. But Oklahoma didn't really have anybody else to play that spot. Gallimore's get-off is outstanding. He has excellent mobility for his size, and he's really explosive at that as well. He did a lot of shifting pre-snap in that OU scheme, and he had his moments of yanking offensive linemen to the side or backdoor blockers in the run game, and showing great short area burst and tackles, making tackles outside his area. In the pass game, he's really moving, has some great arm over moves, can create push and packs devastating spin move as well. His quickness was a nightmare for centers a lot of times, which had opposing offenses sliding guards that way to him as well to slow some of that down. Gallimore does not stop in his pass rush, he doesn't stop working, and he ran several T and TT twists as well. To go with his 7 sacks over the last 2 years, he also had 49 extra pressures, displays highly fluid hips, and explosive when he has to reaccelerate or change directions, which is also apparent at the combine, where he ran a 4.840 with a 1.79 split, and he also had an impressive Senior Bowl where he won a lot with his explosiveness and got those instant W's. The negatives here with him, he's not an overly disciplined run defender, kind of spins off some traffic at times and loses vision of the ball carrier. He can be taken off balance by angular blocks and double teams. He has to really improve on deconstructing blocks and working according to the offensive run scheme. Also, in the pass game, I think he has to get more efficient with his clubs and swipes as you see him as you want to see him actually step around blockers instead of moving laterally in front of them a lot of times. Gallimore showed much more urgency and effort as a senior, and he's had an outstanding pre-draft season. To me, he really moved up the board with the things he's done since the season ended, and I think when in a better role as a true free tech, with better NFL coaching, I think he can improve a lot in all those areas that he's still lacking at this point. Closing out the top 5 is Marlon Davidson from Auburn, USA Today All-American as a high school senior, and then a freshman All-SEC selection. He was an excellent player already over the next 2 years, but since he promised his late mother that he would earn a degree, he came back for his senior season, and not only was that a great move for him personally, but it also paid off for the NFL evaluators, as he recorded 7.5 sacks, 12.5 tackles for loss, a fumble forced and recovers each, which made him a first-team All-SEC selection. Davidson played that hybrid outside linebacker role for Auburn and was listed around 280 pounds. I don't think he's ever been that weight really since probably senior year of high school, but that's why they had him added the roster. To me, he projects best as a free technique at the next level, and now he's already bulked up to 303 pounds when you look at his combine measurements. Davidson was primarily the first guy off the ball for Auburn. He's shown heavy hands against the run and good backside discipline when he was lined up on the edge. There's not going to be much movement at the point of attack with this guy picking up guys, and he's manhandled some tight ends who attack with him. I felt sorry for some of them when I watched the tape. In the pass game, he's a power rusher primarily, but also has some edge qualities. He can point those hips and flatten much better than most 300-pounders can, with some good ankle flexibility and lean to get around guys. Davidson also does a nice job swiping hands and chopping down before ripping through and pinning the arms of the blocker and clearing a lane for himself towards the quarterback. He consistently shortens the corner with power, and while he did primarily line up on the edge, he slid inside on some third downs and already proved that his quickness and power can be a problem there as well. At the Senior Bowl, he basically bullied everybody with his long arms and quick swipes, but also, like Kinlaw, had to sit out days 3 and the actual game, but he made an impact on me there as well. The negatives with Davidson here: he doesn't have great short area quickness and doesn't project particularly well as a two-gap player. He drops his head too much and loses vision on the ball carrier in the run game at times, and he doesn't have the real burst off the edge to survive there full time, and he needs to start being a little more active with his secondary move. To me, Davidson is a free tech or a strong set defensive end who can slide inside in sub packages. He's a man in the run game and puts a lot of heat on the passer as a rusher. To me, there's guys who probably have bigger upside, but with Davidson, I think you know what you get, and that's a tough football player who will perform for you right away. Alright, at number 6, I have Justin Madubuike out of Texas A&M, former 5-star recruit. Basically played every game as backup in his freshman season. In year 2, he was the most improved player for the Aggies on defense, and he has an even better last season. Over these last 2 years, he has combined for 95 total tackles, 22 tackles for loss, 11 sacks, 4 passes knocked down, 4 fumbles, a pick, and a field goal blocked. So a lot of good numbers across the board. Madubuike has a unique body at 6'3", just over 300 pounds, with long limbs and a broad chest. He comes off the ball with some explosion and excellent leverage. He has a strong base and good balance to not get taken advantage of, which you can see like when guys have an advantage on him on an angular block and he's caught on one leg or something like that, or something like that. But he somehow still gains his balance, and that also comes in handy against double teams. He has some jolt in those hands to rock offensive line backwards and tosses them to the side to swallow up running backs. He also had an excellent combine to go with some of the athleticism you can see on tape. In the pass game, he gets around guards with good swipes and long strides. He has those snaps where he drives blockers backwards in the quarterback's lap. One that sticks out to me was against LSU's center, Lloyd Cushenberry, who has one of the best anchors I've ever seen from a college prospect, and Madubuike still had one of those plays where he took them for a ride. He's a specialist at getting guys off balance and yanking them out of the way, and he's excellent at setting up stunts with a couple of steps upfield and then a sudden cut underneath, which you don't see a lot from defensive linemen, especially on the interior. Plus, when he puts those arms in the air, it's like throwing through woods for quarterbacks. The negatives here: Madubuike needs to play with a little more extension in the run game and be more consistent with his aiming points overall. He doesn't offer much once that initial rush stalls, rather than just being content with an ineffective spin or something like that when he doesn't have any momentum left. Another thing that overall that is a bit of a problem here with Madubuike, his motor can be running hot and cold, and with that connected is sloppy technique in the process as well. So that is something that has to be coached out of him at the next level. I think Madubuike offers a tremendous combination of length, athleticism, balance, and power. While he's not technically sound at this point and needs to play under better control overall, I think he offers a lot of scheme versatility, being able to shoot up gaps, but also having the length and power to two-gap potentially. I think he needs to play hard all the time and be willing to be coached at the next level, but I don't think there's, if he can do that, I don't think there's a lot that stands in his way of being a great pro. Okay, I think we're kind of moving out of the top group, which I already talked about, which probably will be in my top 50, with number 7, Davon Hamilton from Ohio State. Former All-Star player out of the state of Ohio and 3-star recruit. After a redshirt year, the next 2 years he spent as a quality rotational piece for that Buckeye line, and only had 3 starts in 2018 as well. Last season, he finally cracked the starting lineup, which led to 10.5 tackles and 6 sacks, as well as third-team All Big Ten honors. Nicknamed the Hulk by his teammates, he's a quick mover for a 320-pound man. He stands his ground versus double teams and can rip past offensive linemen when they start leaning too much into him. Hamilton has those snaps where he just knives through gaps and creates chaos in the backfield, and he can make up space parallelly very well for his size. Hamilton packs a lot of power on his bull rush and is great at getting underneath the arm of the blocker with a rip. And to me, his underrated quickness, which you can see on kind of those stutter and swipe moves. He also shows some good secondary efforts as a pass rusher and so put some guys on the skates at the Senior Bowl during the one-on-ones. Like one of the plays that sticks out to me, or one of the reps that sticks out to me, was against, or a couple of them against Washington center Nick Harris, who I really like. But Hamilton rocked him backwards right into the quarterback's lap a couple of times there. While Hamilton had 6 sacks in 2019, he only had 20 total pressures and just over 350 snaps in each of the last 2 seasons. He has basically no experience two-gapping for whoever is looking at him as a true nose tackle, and is a little stiff in the lower body. He also only has 2 pass rush moves, basically the club rip and the bull rush. Just a 1-year starter, Hamilton may never be a third down fixture depending on the team who drafts him. He, to me, is most comfortable as a shade nose in the 4-3, and we will have to see how he develops as a pass rusher to know which value he has at the next level if he can be an every down player. At number 8, I think I differentiate myself a little bit from the rest. I have McTelvin Agim from Arkansas, former 5-star recruit and number 1 overall player from the state of Arkansas. Played in every game as a freshman and started the last 5, which earned him SEC All-Freshman recognition. Over these last 3 years, he started all but 1 game and led the Razorbacks in tackles for loss and sacks every single year, altogether amassing 31 tackles for loss, 14.5 sacks, and 6 forced fumbles. Agim has a very unique build at 6'3", close to 310 pounds, with a thick lower body and a wingspan north of 80 inches. The first thing that stands out watching him is his tremendous jump off the snap. He shoots through gaps before blockers are even out of the stance and already can set the first step. He also has a high swim, which you can wreak havoc with to backdoor blockers and get involved. And you won't see blockers cross Agim's face a lot of times on those outside zone plays because it's just too quick for them. Agim gets through one shoulder of the blocker and offers a lot of variety with his pass rush moves. Thanks to his experience on the edge, you can see the club rip, swim, and even the cross chop, which you don't see for a lot of interior linemen. Agim was also used as a zero tech in some passing situations when Arkansas had 3 down linemen on the field, and he pushed Santos backwards into the quarterback's lap. To me, Agim was basically unblockable at East-West Shrine practices. He won most of his battles at the Senior Bowl then as well when he got a late invite, so he's had a great pre-draft process as well. To me, what he has to improve on is he has to play with more extension against the run and not let his hands get as wide as they do at times. He doesn't really drop those hips and anchor down too well, allowing angular blockers to get underneath his pads and being moved off the spot by double teams. Agim also has to be a little more urgent with his counters and play under better control as a pass rusher. However, I think he offers a rare blend of explosiveness, fluidity, and versatility of his pass rush arsenal. His inability to stand his ground versus angle block is definitely a concern, but I think he's best served as a penetrating free technique anyway. He was the best player on that Arkansas defense and received a lot of attention, but still flashed on plenty of occasions. Next up, I have Jason Strowbridge from North Carolina, former 4-star recruit from the state of Florida. He's flashed his first 2 years with the Tar Heels, but really broke out for them as a junior when he had 7.5 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks, which earned him honorable mention All-SEC selection. He put up similar numbers last season, but didn't receive a lot of natural recognition until his Senior Bowl performance. Strowbridge is 6'5", 285 pounds. He spent about 80% of his snaps inside or head up of the offensive tackle. He's strong at the point of attack with good extension, and he can yank guys to the sides when the ball carrier is in range. Strowbridge doesn't stay blocked against the run and shows tremendous pursuit. You even see him run down some receivers when they try to make people miss on the second level. As a pass rusher, Strowbridge displays good twitch, and he can take a lot of offensive linemen off balance. He does a nice job stringing his hands and feet together, and which you can already see on a dynamic rip move. Strowbridge was moved around quite a bit on third downs, even to some degree as a stand-up linebacker over the top of centers, and he received plenty of attention from offenses. His get-off in power really stood out at the Senior Bowl as well, where he put a few guys straight on the butt. Like the first rep altogether of the entire one-on-one session, he took, I don't know exactly who it was anymore, but he just took him and put him straight on his ass and kind of set the tone for his time there. On the flip side for me here, Strowbridge is a little late off the ball on some base downs. He allows blockers to scoop him if he doesn't get a good jump, and versus double teams he has major struggles keeping traction, a lot of times getting rocked backwards. In the pass game he also allows offensive linemen to land an initial stab and squaring up, and you see him lose balance and raise his pads too much if his initial rush doesn't have great success. Strowbridge could probably play on the edge if he dropped 10 to 15 pounds, and that's where some people project him as. But I think he should stick in the B gap, which where he's a more than adequate run defender when singled up, and has a lot of upside as a pass rusher, which he already displayed at the Senior Bowl. And wrapping up my top 10 is Jarrell Murchison from NC State, staying in the state of North Carolina. Former top 50 JUCO recruit. He redshirted his first year with the Wolfpack and then made an immediate impact as the team's defensive lineman of the year, with 34 tackles, 8 of them for loss, 4 sacks, an interception, and 2 PBUs. He took his game, however, to the next level last season and was a second-team All-ACC selection, with slightly better numbers even. At 6'2", close to 300 pounds, you see Murchison bounce off multiple blockers and run guys down from behind. He does a great job fighting through the reach and crashing across the face of blockers on zone plays, and he continues to fight with his hands and displays great pursuit. You see some serious wheels for a 300-pounder with this guy when he reaches full sprint. Murchison also has impressive burst off the ball and plenty of power at the initial contact, plus a really strong push-pull move to complement that. Murchison can shoot through one shoulder of the blocker and really take advantage of bad lunging habits. However, he also shows little recognition whatsoever for the blocking schemes, oftentimes looking a little lost out there. Murchison has to do a better job rushing the passer with a plan and having a counter ready. He lacks the flexibility in the lower body and is a weirdly uncomfortable tackler in space. Like one of the plays, like a tunnel screen, the other team is running from the opposite side, and you see him kind of in perfect position to make the tackle, and he just gets his arms out wide, and all of a sudden the guy's past him. So that was something that kind of stuck out to me. However, I think Murchison's a penetrating force who places active hands in a tremendous effort. He might have some limitations due to the stiffness in his lower body, but I think he's a lot of room to improve as a pass rusher by adding some counters and being more proactive with his hands. I think he can be one of those penetrating free techs as well. Alright, 3 other guys I want to mention here. First up, Raekwon Davis from Alabama, once a really high recruit, had a dominant 2017 player for the Tide. He has all the length and power that you would ever want, and he looks perfect to fit as a 5-tech, which you play at times for Bama. But I think he's regressed every single season since that playoff run. And last year I thought he added some excess weight and didn't play as hard as I would have liked him to. Talent definitely there, need to be coach upped and be able to play a little more freely. Another guy, Jordan Elliott from Missouri, one of those pre-draft hype guys. I think PFF has him as the third best interior D lineman in this draft. I just don't see it. I definitely see the talent, power, some quickness to him. Definitely all there, and with great coaching you might get out of him. But to me, gets uprooted by double teams, is not nearly technically sound to make an impact yet. Definitely a lot of talent there as well. I don't feel comfortable investing a high draft pick in him at this point. And finally, Lake Kifotu from Utah. Another guy, highly impressive, has all the power in the world. You see him run through guys and make those impact plays in the backfield on some occasions. However, there are also a lot of inconsistencies on tape, and he's not nearly the player he could be someday, but he plays really high, also at 6'5", and there are just things he has to clean up for me to really put him up there with those other guys. To recap things here, once again, here's my top 10. At the top of Derrick Brown from Auburn, dominant player, can fit multiple schemes. Javon Kinlaw behind him, an explosive option, probably more of a true free tech. Those two kind of separated themselves in this process. Both definitely top 15 prospects. And behind that, I have this group of Blacklock, Gallimore, Davidson, Madubuike, who will all find their ways into my top 50. Have some weaknesses, every one of them basically, but a lot of upside there with those guys. And then number 7, I think Davon Hamilton. A lot of guys like him as well. Very explosive, powerful kid. But I think after that, those other 3 guys I mentioned here, a lot of times nobody even has them in their top 10s. I understand if you're not totally sold on them, but I'm not sold on guys like Raekwon Davis or Jordan Elliott or some guys like that who have been some buzz names out there or have the tools, because I've seen these three guys get it done to some degree and flash, especially during this postseason process. All right, so that's the list. Please also check out my video on the running backs, and you can go to my page if you're interested in an even more detailed review of these guys, of these rankings. You can find my running backs and my linebackers. I already put out my interior O-line a couple of days ago. Also, you can follow me on all my social media channels, which I will have the links below. Leave a like, leave a subscribe if you like this content. And until then, see you later. Peace.